Welcome to CathyDSlaught's SRC4u Zoom call for December 16th, 2021. We're here on Cathy's website, CathyDSlaght.com. We're going to scroll down and look for this Zoom banner, and we're going to click through to the Zoom platform. But before we do that, if you'd like to be part of Cathy's SRC4u Daily Energy Clearing Group, all the information's here, and you can register. We'll continue on to the Zoom platform. Well, I will approve. And please monitor your speaker as it may be loud when we enter.
Elizabeth is going to talk with us today about the Merkabah, so that should be interesting. Welcome, everybody. It's 10 o'clock. I'm going to share a couple of things, and then Elizabeth, are you there?
Yes, I am, Cathy.
Yay. Let me just share a couple of things real quickly, then I'm excited to hear what you have to say about am I saying it right, Merkabah?
That's right.
Okay. I'm going to send this out. I don't know that we'll send anything out today if we don't have a whole bunch of information. But I did want a friend of mine who is a really seasoned body talk person. I've known her well now over 50 years. Is raving about something. This is an Alexander technique, which is for spinal stress. So I want to share that information if any of you want to check that out. She had been having a number of falls. She's had a bunch of falls. And she ran across this, and everything seems to be getting very much back in balance. And then I also want to mention this, to me anyway, fantastic site, Learning Herbs, if you haven't seen it, which has just about every bit of information you can imagine on herbs and herb remedies, how to learn. You can purchase your herbs there. So if any of you get a chance to check it out, I'm kind of excited about it because next year's a project for me is going to be to do a little bit more of my own herbal work. But anyway, and then real quickly, because I thought I would just do our work while Elizabeth talks, here's what we're looking for today. In addition to the Wonder Click, we're wanting to clear any non-beneficial information from the past life blueprint, a blessing instead of a curse. We want our etheric field properly aligned with all the subtle bodies. You know, that is the difference, just real quickly, between the Western and the Eastern. As far as I see it, Western is primarily focused on the physical body. Eastern is focused on all the bodies and actually is more proactive. Whereas Western is, once you're sick, then you do your work. So it's interesting. We're going to go a lot into these subtle bodies, and I know Elizabeth is going to probably touch on that with the Merkabah. Good fortune. We want armor, protection from negativity, protection prayer, remove and transmute. A lot of this has been going on lately. We can add it. It's not anything we want to focus on. We want to be aware. We want to include our family members, and then we want that YouTube. And then we also are doing our sustenance balancer just to see, and we're taking I just kind of go through it throughout the day and sending that in. And then also I want you to see we are down to level 1. We are still not ready to activate cosmic and elemental energies to align with the power of God. Look here, pro 4, con 8, 34 minutes. I've just been kind of taking this slow. And I've also been working with these timelines. In fact, I have not yet shut everything down to upgrade, and I need to, but I kind of got interested in doing this. And I was wondering if okay, so there's a 15. If I can get 2 15s in a row, then I'll shut these down. Don't want to hammer it, so I don't want to just sit here and do it over and over. But now this fractured soul, we really have had a lot of 125. There you go again, another 125. I think we might have. Is that you, Karen? I think it is. I think Karen Webb just joined us, which is very good news. And this is the violence. So again, if that goes down to 15, then we will be able to call that off. So anyway, that's it. Elizabeth, looking forward to what you have to share.
Sure. Cathy, do you happen to have those illustrations that I sent you yesterday?
I sent them out. Let me see if I
good.
can. Everybody should have them. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. Well, the simplest way to think of a Merkabah is as a geometrical structure. And you could say it's made up of two three-dimensional triangles that are brought together. And if you have the illustrations in front of you, or if you look at them, you can see that. And together they comprise what's called a tetrahedron. Actually, each of the three-dimensional triangles in itself is a tetrahedron. When you bring them together, it's referred to as a star tetrahedron. It becomes a three-dimensional structure which has emanating out from different points, and the two structures represent, you could say, that which is coming in from above, or spirit, and that which is coming in from below, or matter. You can think of heaven and earth, spirit and matter, however you want to think of it, but it combines the dualities and is helping to resolve them into a oneness. The Merkabah, for a long time, was sort of it was sort of a proprietary kind of knowledge that was held only by those who were in the mystery schools or who were high up in rank. But as individuals evolved and became more in touch with their energy body, they began to actually perceive this geometric structure around them. So it's in reality, it's part of us. In fact, it's even, you could say, part of our DNA. But until we become more awakened, we're not aware of it. But the nice thing is that while we're still unaware of it, we can, just by knowing about it and by sort of invoking it, it becomes more and more real to us until it finally becomes a conscious part of our energy body. And the idea, let's say, for example, when you meditate, if you can visualize yourself sitting inside the Merkabah, not only does it help to unify, you could say your higher bodies and your lower bodies, but it also provides a protective structure. And in fact, it's considered by some to be sort of the ultimate protective geometric structure. Let's see, what else? I had to do some research. I've been invoking the Merkabah without, really understanding all of its many features, and there are more than, probably any one individual knows. But I think the main thing to say at this point is it's a way of bringing our upper and our lower bodies together until it begins to form what is called a light body. And let's see, what was I going to say? Does anyone have any questions? Sometimes I do better in a question and answer format than just presenting it. Anything?
Yeah, I do, Elizabeth. Do you just work with visualizations, or do you hold an actual crystal in the shape of a Merkabah?
You can do both. I have several Merkabah crystals or structures in different places in my home, so I'm always sort of having it as part of my awareness. But when I meditate, I imagine myself in the structure, and when you imagine your sacral chakra being sort of at the center of it. And sometimes I'll hold one of these little Merkabahs in either hand just to keep that in my awareness. But I think that the more conscious we become that it is part of us, is already an aspect of our energy body, then it becomes more real to us. At first, it's just sort of a concept, and sometimes people even, they don't even realize that it's something that relates to them. They just think of it as an interesting structure, but it's an essential part of our energy body. And the more aware we are of it, the more real it will become. And those who are, very spiritually advanced, think of it as not just a structure, a static structure, but as a vehicle. And, that sense of its being a vehicle begins to dawn on us when we realize that the upper tetrahedron and the lower tetrahedron spin in different directions, in opposite directions. And as I said, those who are really, working with their Merkabah and have, really attained a degree of awareness, find that it is a vehicle that can actually transport them, not necessarily in a physical sense, but, into higher and higher realms. Some people refer to it as the ascension vehicle. Mm-hmm. And this concept was, it's used in mythology sometimes. For example, in the Bible, they'll talk about, Elijah going up in a chariot. And that's really another way of talking about the Merkabah. And so it's, as I said, just because we haven't heard much about it doesn't mean that it's not an actual and important thing. So the more aware we become of it, the more we'll begin to understand all of its, implications and uses.
Joanna, you want to run some of those questions you had before? I don't know if Elizabeth was with us yet. I know Elizabeth, our brother Joanna, had been told some things about the Merkabah that kind of concerned her as far as it opening her up too much. Are you there, Joanna?
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, because when I was doing a lot of meditating, I was buying a lot of crystals too. Mostly black crystals, and I didn't understand why, but they're grounding crystals, and I can't remember this one. It looks like petrified wood. But anyways, I had come across this one in the shop. It used to be called the Underground. It was a really, really nice crystal shop, and it was this beautiful, like, I've never seen a shape like this. So I took it up, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. So I'm like, I was going to buy it, and she asked me if I knew what it was. And I said no, and she was telling me about it and everything, and how it's to be respected, and that when you're sitting with your legs crosswise, you put it right between your center of your legs. And she says, now you have to be really careful, and you always want to have someone with you. And she says that you can actually leave your body, and she called it teleport, but you can travel anywhere. And she says, but you want to always make sure you're well grounded. And she had talked about putting a black circle of stones around you for protection, so you don't get walk-ins, and you come back. And I mean, have you heard anything like this?
I haven't heard anything about that in connection with the Merkabah. I do know that, different crystals have, very, very powerful properties, and one needs to, I think, as you put it, work with them with a reverent sense and a knowing sense too. I think the main thing about a Merkabah is that as I mentioned, that the top one and the bottom one spin in opposite directions, and the direction of the spin is very important. There are some teachers out there who are teaching an inverted spin, and that can be dangerous. And because I haven't gotten to the level of really doing this, see, a Merkabah by its own nature spins, and we can help to promote that by actually standing up and spinning around. But the direction of the spin is critical, and I just am not at the point yet where I can speak very coherently about that.
The Flower of Life guy, that's who my friends had studied with, talked about being able to visualize the Merkabah, and in times of crisis, just visualize yourself stepping in.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, again, this is just, what I've come to learn. I just presented as as my understanding of things, the flower of life is, while it's sort of a universal structure, it's hard to believe it, but the geometries on our planet have undergone a kind of distortion. And so there are a lot of what we think of as being fundamental geometries, like, the Fibonacci spiral or the golden mean or even the flower of life, that we consider to be sort of just of the essence of reality, but in fact, they represent a slight distortion. So I don't work with the flower of life or the Fibonacci or the golden mean, but the flower of life, and there's a whole, you could say almost a whole school of thought related to the flower of life. And that's a school of thought that, while it's very popular, is, from what I understand, they sort of promote the distortions. And I'm not going to name names, but the person who's the head of that school of thought is, from what I've come to understand and actually really have, a sense of it, is not to be followed, because he represents a whole, you could say just a whole different school of thought, is putting it lightly, just a whole different thought field that is, kind of related to that distortion. So sacred geometry is not to be taken lightly. One needs to really gain an understanding. And it wasn't until I went through a whole, kind of schooling in some really fundamentals of the nature of reality that I began to get some of the sense that there are distortions on the planet. Even what we think of as nature has been affected by that distortion. When we sort of get back to the way things are meant to be, we'll find that things do not have to wither and die. Things in nature, even animals, don't have to be harmful. All of those kind of things represent the distortions, which are not truly natural. They are an imposition on true nature.
Have you ever heard of Melchizedek?
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Oh.
Melchizedek Drunvalo?
Yes, Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Yeah. This is just my opinion. Yeah. But I've heard that he is presenting the distorted sense. Now, of course, anyone who's in that school of thought would disagree, and they have a right to do that. But I know from my experience and from some of the very pure teaching that I've received, that represents kind of a divergence from the true geometry.
That Elizabeth, my friends who studied with him, came to that conclusion also and backed away. Yeah.
Well, I feel very fortunate, because at one time, there's a, what do they call it? A flower of life, and there's a whole initiation that goes with that. And it was very popular, and I was going to have to travel to a different city to take part in it. And even though I was ready to do it, I was enthusiastic, life just simply would not allow it. So I never did do it. And then it was a couple of years later that I became involved in a very pure teaching, which I'm still involved in, which helped me to understand why I was very fortunate not to have gone in that direction.
Yeah, well, that was wonderful. Can you share what it is you're studying?
Well, it's called Keylontic Science, Keylontic, Keylontic Science, and it's the most profound teaching that I've ever encountered. When I began getting involved with it, my world expanded to a degree that I just did not think was possible. I just really, at least mentally, moved very quickly out of my 3D conventional sense of things and began to get a much more cosmic view of reality. And what what Keylontic science does is to take us down to, you could say, and this is just for want of a better way of putting it, just down to the quantum levels of reality, and really enables us to understand what it is that constitutes what we think of as being, the unity of being. And that is, I won't even begin to try to talk about that, but that was, that is, I actually moved to Sarasota in order to become more involved in the workshops and so forth. But it's really incredibly technical, very, 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 very involved. I mean, more involved than you can imagine. And after a few years, I sort of backed away because I found that I was, it was activating my mental body to a degree where I was getting sort of distance from, just an understanding of the fundamental unity of things. So it's because it's so technical, it involves a lot of, mental work in order to grasp it. And I felt like I needed to steep myself more in the oneness of being, which I did by getting involved in other teachings. And then after doing that for, about 7 years, I thought, okay, now I'm ready to gain an understanding of what really constitutes this oneness. Oneness is not just a vague, mystical thing. It is, it is related to the whole, you could say, the whole mechanics of reality. And I was ready to get in a better understanding of those mechanics. And the Merkabah represents one example of the mechanics of oneness. And, rather than, I'll just say this last thing because I don't want to take more of your time, Cathy, but the beauty of the Merkabah is that it does not take us out of our body. It's constantly unifying body and spirit. That's the beauty of those two geometrical triangles being unified. So it's always enhancing our oneness rather than separating us. So it keeps us in our body and at the same time acquaints us with our true reality, which is spiritual.
Let's see. I love this information. Let's see if there would be. And I had the strangest thing happen. I've not had that happen in all these years. What we had going in here disappeared, and I don't know how. So I redid it. So that's another life experience. But let's just see. Let's just see. Priority for Chi. Add image. Spell that Merkabah for me again, Elizabeth. I know I misspelled it.
Sure. Merkabah.
Thank you. Primary for Chi. Add image of Merkabah to today's water via the SRC4u charger. I'm trying to be as specific as possible because obviously if we're wanting to create, we want our words to be specific. Let's just see if that would be a good thing. No, probably not. Let's see.
I'm going to interrupt. Intention. Ron talks about intention. I had a long conversation with him with regards to intention. And I think like we're doing the Power of Thoughts prayer group. And Ron was going on about the intention and being specific and everything like that. I don't know why. That just came to my mind. And I'm like, intention. It has to do with intention. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, that's when you get into all these bodies, you realize very often your conscious intention is not your subconscious intention. I think, for example, of weight loss, people that have spent all this money and they couldn't have on a conscious level any more intention, or maybe even illness. They couldn't have any stronger intention on a conscious level, but then beneath. In fact, that's one thing as we go through this water stuff. Next week, we're going to be working on these bodies because that's where the real action is. And I totally agree.
And
I think that's one of the things this kind of software can show you like nothing else, which is, what is your intention? What is it really?
That's true.
And the water, water having memory, like crystals have memory, and clearing the negative. And Archangel Michael keeps coming in, and I think that's who intervened that night. That it could have been a bad accident, but even like last night, for whatever reason, Archangel Michael came in again. And before we started all this, Archangel Michael came in, and I'm mentioning him now. So, and then remembering how much, like Dr. Emoto's, he was very specific on his research and with the water and the beautiful crystals that it made. And so I don't know why I'm sharing all this, but I'm just sharing it. So anyways.
Anybody else have any examples? We mentioned that the other day of when they believe a guardian angel has stepped in. And of course, guardian angel, or some people believe that ETs step in. Any thoughts on that?
Many times. I have.
Cathy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. There's Karen.
Yeah.
I believe that I had an intervention on a Tuesday and Wednesday. I went in the hospital on Monday. Tuesday and Wednesday, I had no conscious awareness, and I was unable to communicate with anyone. But I'm 80% well at this, and I didn't lose any mental capacities, and I have full use of my right arm, and we're working on my right leg, and I can stand, and I can walk, I can toilet myself, I can shower on my own, and it seems like it was a miracle, and I think that there was divine intervention on those 2 days that I was unconscious.
We are so happy to have you back. And you may have gained a little information in those 2 days you were in another world.
I probably did.
Beautiful to hear, Karen. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
Karen,
welcome. It's so good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
And I have goosebumps all
I'm
over
glad
my
to
body.
be on the call.
And Cathy, one more thing. I always tell people, if you want to get help from your angels, all you got to do is ask.
That's right. You're right.
People only think, well, they're just here to watch over us. Well, I'll tell you what. Your angels are here to HELP, to help you. And when you make your request, I request the most benevolent outcome, or you fill in the blank and say thank you, and may just even be the highest and best for me. Thank you.
Ron,
release it, let it go, and watch what happens.
And Ron, you seem to be pretty well versed on this. Are there angels that are more powerful than others? Like, some people I've noticed in prayers, they call in the super powerful angels. You know anything about that? Well,
I know a little bit. Certainly Archangel Michael is probably one of the strongest. There are many angels, and the fact is that we don't really know all of them. In fact, I come up with some names sometimes that I never heard of that one before. And they just keep on coming in. But you can invite all your angels. My wife, when she was alive, we had gone and we were taking some classes, and in the healing class, the instructor informed my wife that she actually had 20 some angels that are watching over her. Wow, and whether that was for a specific reason or what, I don't really know. But there are many angels, and when you call on your guardian angel, there's more and more angels that come to help too. And you can ask them for anything. Perfect example, probably about 2 weeks ago, I made a request for unexpected money. And 2 days ago, I got a check in the mail from one of my clients for $250.
Ooh, all right. Well, and it's funny because we can't see these things. Sometimes it sounds a little like, well, maybe. But I know many years ago, I had a client who was a graduate of the mystery schools. He's no longer with us. He was way up in years at that time. And his wife, for years, got up every morning and meditated at 4. And what got her up is there would be a knock at their bedroom door. And I know that guy wasn't messing with me. I mean, this was a very serious and ethical person. I never forgot that. I don't know what my reaction would be if something knocked on my door to get me up. But there's things we just can't explain, things we don't understand.
Hey, Cathy.
Yeah.
The thing to remember about angels is that you have to ask for the help. Even your guardian angels, even though they're here to help you with whatever, they won't intervene unless you ask them to.
Absolutely unequivocal.
Wow.
So that's the thing I think most of us forget about, is that you actually have to ask.
And I always say, make your MBO, most benevolent outcome.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's great, Ron.
So, well, I probably won't send anything out today because there's not a whole lot here. No use to clog up your email. And I'm going to go in here later. It does look like, again, a little spiritual stress popped in. So I don't want to go into the prayer warrior now because I've got other names in there. I don't know what I might accidentally show. But the Merkabah, it looks like that's going to be something we do on our own. It doesn't look like we want the image or the charge or anything like that through this technology. But I think it's interesting. I'm sure going to investigate.
If you go on YouTube, there are a lot of videos about it that help to explain it.
Oh, thank you. I think that's the best way for me. Anything else? Any questions or anything like that?
It's always a pleasure to be here, Cathy.
So glad.
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Great. Karen did send yesterday some information on Dr. Emoto, but I'm hoping she might be a guest next week. We'll see if it's a little bit early for her over where she is, but otherwise, that's another thing we want to look at is what Dr. Emoto did with water. But for now, we'll just keep charging our water and go forward, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Elizabeth, for your presentation, too. That was very
Thank you so much.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, sweeties.
This concludes the SRC4u Zoom call. Thank you for being here. We look forward to seeing you again. Until then, take care and be well.